pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heidi, you're up. At some point in time, you're going to have to show us pictures of the cruise.
Okay, financials today include appropriation transfers from the general fund for the sheriff's office for the purchase of 2 additional vehicles and the Veteran Service Commission for grave marker and travel expenses. Supplemental appropriations for the CASA fund and the engineers building fund. Cash transfers out of the general fund for 2016 funding for the tax map department as well as the stormwater management fund. Travel requests for the Department of Job and Family Services and the transit department. A payment to Logos Communication for the annual Cisco SmartNet maintenance contract for the ABC board in the amount of $95,064.07, and payments to Integrity Appraisal for the 2017 revaluation project for the auditor's office totaling $34,986.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
Aye. Morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good, good. Weather's starting to break. You guys ready for another fishing trip?
Are you? Better question, are you? I'm glad I didn't get on there. You thought I wasn't smart, but I am.
Do you still hear some rumblings with that?
No, they're,
Are they okay? Out of shock now?
yeah. Everybody's on a shock. They all survive, so.
Yeah. What you got, Sandy?
Nope.
The Department on Aging is requesting the board approve an unpaid family medical leave for Maggie Duncan. She's an adult day service assistant, and she had some health problems and some surgery, and she needs time to recover. And she doesn't have any more sick time.
The Department on Aging is requesting the board approve an unpaid family medical leave FMLA for Maggie Duncan, Adult Day Services Assistant, to be effective February 17, 2016 through March 24th, 2016.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
Aye.
We would like to hire Melissa Cardina for full-time recreation and education assistant. Melissa comes from the Cleveland Skating Club, and she also has other programming experience. We think she'll be a really good fit for us.
Department on Aging is requesting the board approve hiring Melissa Cardina to the position of full-time recreation and education assistant number 1005 to be effective March 7, 2016 at a rate of $13.30 per hour with a 1-year probationary period.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
And we would also like to hire Lorena Mast. For the same position, we had 2 openings, and Lorena comes from the healthcare profession. She works for Charity Companions and is really, really compassionate and nice young lady. And I'd like to recommend her also.
The Department on Aging is requesting the board approve hiring Lorena Mass to the position of full-time recreation and education assistant number 1005 to be effective February 29, 2016 at a rate of $13.30 per hour with a 1-year probation.
So moved.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
All right, take care. Bye-bye now. Yes, again. Thanks, Doc.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
we go through these one at a time, or however you like?
6.
What's easiest for you in terms of reading? Doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't matter.
Why don't we do them all together? They're all very closely related.
Thank you. Okay. Today, we have 6 county bid projects for the Road and Bridge Department. It includes the resurfacing of Clay Street, sections A and B, from Burton Windsor Road to Mayfield Road, the resurfacing of Auburn Road, of Gingrich Road from 168 to 87. Item 6. Item 7 is the resurfacing of Chardon Windsor Road, Huntsburg Township. Item 8 is the resurfacing of Hale and Butternut from Clarendon Road to Burton Windsor. Item 9 is the replacement of the bridge at Cuts Road, along with some culverts on that road. And item 10 is our annual pavement marking plan. If there's any questions about any of those specific projects, I'd be glad to elaborate.
And the pavement parking usually starts when?
Pavement marking, we try to do that later in the summer. We'd like to get our crack sealing work done first,
Yep.
which our crews do that with our own equipment. That way we don't put the black over top of the white,
Yeah.
the other way around. Putting the striping on top of the crack sealing makes it last a little longer. So that'll probably be July, August time.
Okay, sounds good.
I came down Fallon's Mills this morning, there's a whole bunch of surveyors, stakes on Fallon, is that your road or is that Munson?
That's Munson Township.
You
They're
don't-
working on a preparatory project to do a paving on that section as well.
Are they gonna widen it or anything?
No.
All right.
Okay.
You want a glass of water before you start? or-
But you guys can go ahead and start signing if you want. The county engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-014 to order the improvement of Clay Street, CH 37, sections A and B in Huntsburg Township. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet for the specifications for the same. Further, this resolution sets a bid opening on Wednesday, March 16th, 2016 at 2 o'clock p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and on the county website. The county engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-015 to order the improvement of Gingrich Road, CH 34, section A in Burton Township. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet for the specifications for the same. Further, this resolution sets a bid opening on Wednesday, March 16th, 2016 at 2:05 p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and on the county website. The county engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-016 to order the improvement of Chardon Windsor Road, CH 13, sections I and J in Huntsburg Township. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet for the specifications for the same. Further, this resolution sets a bid opening on Wednesday, March 16th, 2016 at 2:10 p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and on the county website. The county engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-017 to order the improvement of Hale Road, CH 15, section A, and Butternut Road, CH 21, sections I and J in Burton Township. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet for the specifications for the same. Further, this resolution sets a bid opening on Wednesday, March 16th, 2016 at 2:15 p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and on the county website. The county engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-018 to order the reconstruction of the Cuts Road Bridge structure number 72-0.49 in Hamden Township. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet for the specifications for the same. Further, this resolution sets a bid opening on Wednesday, March 16th, 2016 at 2:20 p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and on the county website. The county engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-019 to order the improvement of various sections of county roads by applying pavement markings for the year 2016. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet for the specifications for the same. Further, this resolution sets a bid opening on Wednesday, March 16th, 2016 at 2:25 p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and on the county website.
And with that channel, probably be off for the rest of the year now.
Nope, she's got more coming.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
Thank you. I won't be back here for about 2 months. We have another batch of 3 projects that are have state grant funding. We also serve the 16 townships, so
Yep.
keep us pretty busy as well.
Sounds good.
This is a big chunk of what we got going on this year.
Okay.
Did you see the earmark projects that were floating around in email? Do we have, still have a need for that dollar on those projects or other projects?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do we still have a need for those, I think that was Auburn, that those projects were identified for? Do we have the need for the monies on Auburn Road, or wherever those projects were identified for?
Yes, certainly, we've been working with ODOT and with NOACA to try to come to some resolution there. Those monies that were set aside for specific projects that either didn't get executed or were delayed for one reason or another. But the federal aid program jobs that we have are in need, and we're definitely working towards trying to at least get access to some of that if that becomes available.
Well, I talked to Myron Cruz yesterday. Those dollars are never sunset because they're earmarked dollars. The only question was, are they still needed in those projects, and do we have the necessary match and the projects and so forth necessary to go forward on that? Grace Galucci called me on Friday to indicate that NOACA doesn't have any control over those dollars, that's an ODOT thing. So when I talked to Myron yesterday, I wanted to confirm with him that ODOT is listed as the project sponsor. He says they're not, so they're going to sort through that. But I'm looking positively toward having those dollars become available for us.
We would certainly be ready to put them to good use in our county if they became available.
But what I'm going to suggest is that you maybe take a look at that and how that would be used, if it's specifically on those projects, because I'm planning on a meeting with Jerry Ray, the director of ODOT. I have to go through the executive director if need be, but I'm going to push for that. I talked to John Eklund and Sarah Latoretta last night. Those are our dollars. We deserve those dollars to come to Geauga County, and so I push for that. And it looks like they don't have much wiggle room right now. So when you go back and talk to Joe, kind of bring out the projects associated with those dollars, see what we need to do to confirm with these guys that it is a good utilization of these, our Geauga County projects. And we'll, as long as we've done our stack of stuff, which you guys always do, I think we're in a good position on those.
Okay. If that comes to fruition, we'll be ready.
Okay. We might want to prime the pump a bit.
Well, we are, but it's a matter of if the political powers that are outside this county see it the same way, so.
Well, they need a little help sometimes, so. All right, thanks. Shane.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Shane.
The probate juvenile court is requesting the board approve and authorize the president and board to execute the additional fiscal year 2016 reclaim grant amendment, attachment A, page 2, to realign funds per UIS recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
The next one I'm handling on behalf of the Transit Department. This is actually a request by Mike Casper for the board to approve him receiving up to 80 hours of unpaid personal leave. He's got a major project going in his house at home and it requires him to be there from time to time. And because he's still a relatively new employee, doesn't have enough vacation time where he's sure he'll cover it. He's kind of asking you guys to pre-approve him being gone as need be on an unpaid basis if he runs out of vacation time while this major renovation of his house is going on.
And then who's Who's watching the?
Well, Jack is second in command,
No, Julia.
and Joanne Brace is his driver supervisor,
They're both in here during the.
and they'll be there during the time. Yep.
The Transit Department is requesting the board approve up to 80 hours of unpaid personal leave of absence for Michael Casper during the period of March 1st, 2016 through October 31st, 2016 per section 6.12 of the Geauga County Personnel Policy and Procedure Manual.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool. I'm glad you guys are ready to sign this one.
Before we do the
Girl Scout ones.
Girl Scout ones, I just want to recognize that one of our commissioners had a loss in his family, a death, and ask for a moment of silence at this time to recognize the heartfelt concern that we have for him at that time. It's always tough to have a loss, so if we just have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, with that, this was their itinerant down.
Yep. 13 through 17 are awards for the Princeton Service Unit, Girl Scouts, their silver and bronze awards. Troop 71399, their project consisted of collecting socks and t-shirts, and they made cat and dog toys and donated them to Rescue Village. And then they did fundraisers, they made ornaments and raised money, and then bought additional items that were of need and donated them. Troop 71401 is Miranda Kling. She actually lived in another state and moved to the area, and her troop had previously gotten their silver award last year, so she completed her project this year by contacting publishing companies and creating a lending library at the University Hospital of Geauga Medical Center in the pediatric surgery waiting area. Troop 70843 completed their bronze award by collecting junk mail from their houses for 1 month, and we're surprised to find that 9 families of junk mail during that period reached a height of 11 feet.
Wow.
That equated to an average of 15 feet of junk mail per family per year. So they started a campaign with a video and pledge to encourage to reduce junk mail by registering on online sites to eliminate the waste. 71146 raised money. They wanted to initially buy bulletproof vests for the K-9 units in the area, and discovered that the majority of them already had vests, but there was a need for first aid kits and training. And so they had a veterinarian coming from New York, and they trained 75 officers from all over the state of Ohio in first aid training for K-9 officers. 71376 did a book collection from the schools, where they created class sets of books and donated them to the Alfred Benesch School in Cleveland in the Metro School District, so that the kids in the classroom would be able to read all of the same book at the same time. So they created a list of books that they were looking for, and then collected them amongst the schools, and then put the sets together and gave them to the school. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution number 16-020 honoring Girl Scout Cadet Troop number 71399 for achieving the Silver Award, the highest honor for a Cadet Girl Scout. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution number 16-021 honoring Girl Scout Cadet Miranda Clank, Troop 71401 for achieving the Silver Award, the highest honor for a Cadet Girl Scout. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution number 16-022 honoring Junior Girl Scout Troop 70843 for achieving the Bronze Award, the highest honor for a Junior Girl Scout. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution number 16-023 honoring Junior Girl Scout Troop 71146 for achieving the Bronze Award, the highest award for a Junior Girl Scout. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution number 16-024 honoring Junior Girl Scout Troop 71376 for achieving the Bronze Award, the highest honor for a Junior Girl Scout.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
Aye. And just a little side note, this is really heartwarming. With all the stuff that goes on in our world and our country, sometimes you get negative, but when you see our kids, our future, doing these kinds of very creative, special things, it really is heartwarming. So it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
this is their equivalent of the Eagle Scout or Bear Scout, so.
Is there gonna be a,
Their Court of Honor will be this Sunday, the 28th at 1 o'clock at Timmons Elementary School, if either of you are able to attend.
Sunday at 1 o'clock?
There's a lot of signing to do.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of pages here.
But so that each one of the girls can have their own copy. And some of them have 13 and 14 members of your troop. Some of these were 15 and 13. They have good sized troops. The kind of good service units always.
Because you sign all kinds of contracts and stuff anyway, it's like a daily thing for you, I think.
My aunt's in the auto mode.
Chris?
Signing checks.
Question?
Yeah, Chinese.
Christie, will you repeat again which Montessori school that celebration is being held at?
It's at Timmons Elementary.
Oh, Timmons Elementary.
Timmons Elementary School.
Aha,
On Washington Street in Bakersfield.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, the Kenston Service Unit always does all of their awards at the same time, they just do one service
Yeah, they have,
ceremony.
it's
Right.
big.
Yes, yeah, annually. I only have one more and then recess.
That's the,
This afternoon.
that's the vacation thing?
No, we have the Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board cancel the regular meeting scheduled for Thursday, February 25th, 2016 at 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool.
Aye.
So there will be no Thursday evening meeting. And then we have to recess until 1:30.
Do we want to read that last item just to?
The Commissioners will hold an on-site public viewing at 1:30 p.m. for the proposed vacation of the public right-of-way upon a portion of an unnamed, non-numbered road in Parking Township. The area proposed to be vacated extends from the easterly right-of-way of Norton Street, TR 476, to the westerly right-of-way of State Route 528.
And,
So we just have to.
any
recess.
questions or anything? We're gonna adjourn. So, go ahead.
Could I make a short comment, son?
Sure.
What I wanted to talk about is the Clean Ohio program. Clean Ohio was a bill that was passed in 2000, and it was passed overwhelmingly by the citizens, and it was up for renewal in 2008, and again, it was passed overwhelmingly. Every county in the state overwhelmingly passed it. The purpose, and by the way, it was proposed by a very conservative governor, Governor Taft, Republican. A good part of the bill was for protecting farmland and natural areas. And people feel that was important, and that's why they passed it overwhelmingly. The law, in many instances, the law requires support of the local government, like you folks, in order for those funds to be used. In recent years, you've not supported those. Any issue that's on Clean Ohio that's come before you, you've not voted for support. And one of the most noteworthy that I can think of offhand is there was some habitat here near Chardon, the only location for native brook trout in the entire state. They're considered endangered for the state.
Was it on this board that they didn't approve it?
That's correct. I don't know exactly how long ago. It may have been before you came on.
Yeah,
I
'cause
can't
I-
recall.
Yeah, it wasn't with this board.
Because I could tell
Is
you.
that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I don't remember anything specific to brook trout.
But
And I've been here
it was
12
not,
years.
it was not, like I say, was not approved. And I would encourage you to consider the fact that on any of these that come up in the future, that the public does support it. The money for this will be spent. Bond issues were, when the bills were passed in 2000, 2008, the bond issues were issued, and so the funds are there, and it will get spent in some part of the state.
right.
And if by not approving it here, that means those funds are not coming to Geauga County. So those are funds that people can't, that won't be used here, they'll be used somewhere else in the state. And that's kind of a shame. So again, I would urge you to reconsider that when things do come up in the future for protecting farmland and natural areas. Thank you.
And can you state your name for the record?
Sure, John Augustine, and I'm a Parkman Township resident.
Yeah, because I don't recall, anything that's come across our table with anything like that, as far as, since I've been here, it's been 3.5 years, so.
Well, I've been told by certain people that they just will not, again, I don't know the specific instance what they're basing on, but they
Yeah.
won't even bring issues before you because their feeling is it just won't get approved. So, again, yeah, I'm sure you're gonna get some issues being brought up here for Clean Ohio funds.
Yeah,
Generally, they're rated by the state, like a parcel that has an endangered species on it. It'll get, because of that, it'll get a higher rating, and Clean Ohio funds will more likely be issued for that project.
okay.
The only comment that I'll make, and I've looked into the Clean Ohio Fund, it's like many things that the voters approve.
Yeah.
They approve it based on one set of facts, which then become something different. The programs that are sold for one concept, a good concept, oftentimes get contorted. And as I'm looking at Clean Ohio, there are some issues. And so sometimes people approve things because they don't know the details, what's
That's true.
underneath of those. And so there are, we all need to be on guard that a program doesn't get sold, doesn't get sold a bill of goods, so to speak. And we always had to be double checking, and, our bureaucracies in our government sometimes misleads and lies to us.
Yeah.
The best example that I can give, and I continue to come back to this, is the NOACA organization, who the road dollars that we pay in are now siphoned off into bicycle trails, and they're siphoned off into total livable communities, and they're siphoned off into soundproofing walls, and all these things that are not roads. And so we, the citizens who pay these taxes, who approve these programs based on a set of facts, now the government tends to contort those. So we just always have to be on guard. So
I
I
understand.
appreciate you bringing that up.
That sort of thing does
And
happen, I
so-
know, but like I say, in this case, it was, if there were opposition to it, when it came up for renewal in 2008, I think that would have come forth, that opposition, and again, it was, in 2008, it was overwhelmingly passed by every county in the state. So,
But and maybe it's, like, have you ever looked into maybe it, like, a lot of times we get mixed up with, like, the Geauga County Park Commissioners. It's two totally separate entities, because they do a lot of the natural resources stuff, so maybe that was them, but, as far as with us, I don't, You don't remember anything like
No,
that?
I don't remember ever anything.
I do not remember anything about the pork chop.
You know, generally speaking, we don't have much to do with environmental kinds of things, other than if our county engineer's working on a road and he has to do a environmental plan, because that's part of the road construction, that kind of stuff. But generally, we don't have anything to do with that, so.
Okay, thank you.
But thanks for coming and bringing that.
I guess the only other thing that I could add to that is sometimes, we did have a situation with, there was the Cleveland History Museum.
Right.
And I did not support that, and the reason I didn't support it is that the property was already protected by the EPA as non-disturbable because of the fen that was there, and the way that the property was is it's already federally protected property. You can't go and do anything there because you would be in violation of the Wetlands Act. So it was something where there were dollars that were basically being given to that landowner for that property, that he would still, it would be like me basically coming to you and saying, I'd like to give you $200,000 for your house. You could live there for the rest of your life. You could will it to your daughter, your son, and they could live there for the rest of their life, and you could do whatever you want for the rest of your life. You just can't build on it, or you can't do something like that. But at the end of the day, there's a big difference between you taking that property and just donating it, because if you choose to do that financially, that you can, if you believe strongly into the conservation part of things, and I'm a big conservation guy, I'm a big hunter, fisherman, outdoorsman, so for me, you can't have enough, woods to hunt in and streams to fish in, so, but as far as the whole thing with, getting paid for that and wanting to do that, it just, that didn't really make sense, because I don't think that that's right to take tax dollars to do that, and when, they want to donate it, then donate it.
I think that may well have been the property. I know the Cleveland Museum had some involvement in it, but it was to be, the intention was to be transferred to the Geauga Park District. And one of the problems with the EPA regulations, oftentimes there's a lot of loopholes in there where
Right.
you may think it has protection, but it really doesn't. It may be protected as a parcel, but if it's divided into small parcels, then they have no wetland protection. So the intent was that it would be acquired, and there would be conservation easement put on that property that would give it further protection.
One of the issues though too is sometimes when this happens, it's vacant land, so it's not being taxed at a high rate, but there is some taxable income coming in. You transfer, in some of these cases, to a non-taxable entity. That means everyone here that pays property tax ultimately is going to keep paying more and more taxes. More and more of our land is taken off the tax rolls.
That's true, but one of the problems there is, you don't have to use property taxes as the way to finance governments. There are other taxes. It seems like the state has been really good lately at cutting income taxes, which benefits really wealthy people by cutting taxes. And then what ends up happening, there's less money that goes to local government funds, and then they don't have any money for roads and libraries and whatever. And the local government has no alternative but to put property taxes on the ballot.
People vote for that. I did an analysis a week or two ago about a property in Munson Township. And in that case, 79% of the property taxes that's paid on that property is paid to the school district and the township.
Right.
So, and people very typically come to the county and complain about property taxes, but it's really, the vast majority is not coming to the county.
But in the case of a piece of property that's considered maybe vacant, if that gets turned into a housing development and houses get put on.
Well, that's a burden.
Well,
That's a burden.
it could be in any community. The actual cost to the community is more
Than the taxes.
than the taxes.
Yeah. For a housing development,
consider
absolutely.
the families living there, the kids that need to be educated. it's costing the community far more than the property taxes that's bringing in.
That's generally true, yes.
Right, and I agree with you on that, because they say that if it's a business district, that's the most cost-effective.
Agriculture is good too.
And agriculture is good too, but as
Sure.
far as, the residents raise your service levels up, and I get that. I just, it's a situation that I think that we could debate it, till the cows come home, is because
I know.
I see it on both sides, I really do. The thing that scares me with it sometimes is the fact that there's a piece of property that was transferred in, I believe it was Munson. It was a large parcel. And in 2000, we were in 2016 right now, so I believe in 2014 was the last year that we were able to collect property taxes on that parcel, which was over $25,000 a year.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, that income for the operations is gone, and it's got to come from somewhere. And I can tell you, you could look at our books. We don't live fat and sassy here, and we don't spend, because we're pretty conservative, and we don't have these millions of dollars in the bank like people may think we do. We ride it pretty close to the vest on this, and when you look at your fire service, and you look at a lot of those things that have kind of been managed with those levels, and you start to pull out of that, and you know it as well as I do, costs continue to rise. Other than gas right now, which is nice, it's gone down, but your costs continue to rise, and your services rise. We have employee salaries that, just to keep current with what is out there, and so when everything is going like this, and then all of a sudden you lose a chunk, ultimately what happens, and so it's a vicious circle, and I've said this many times, like in Geauga County, do you know who our largest landowner is in the county of Geauga? Do you know who that is? It's the city of Akron.
Sure, okay.
Second is the Geauga Park District. So both of those entities, and we're talking thousands upon thousands of acres. If I'm not
About
mistaken, it's
20,000.
over 20,000
It's
acres.
like 25.
We have no revenue at all from them.
Well,
And it costs us on top of that.
There is uneconomic revenue for those wetlands that Akron protects. They're protecting clean water.
No, I know nobody's
No.
going to dispute that.
Okay,
Believe me,
understand.
I don't think you're going to get an argument over the table about that. There's no problem with that. What I'm saying is that area also requires service. Because
Well, not much, Akron land doesn't,
Well-
and I believe they do pay property tax, do they not?
they do not.
Nothing at all?
They do not. No, and that's
There's
why.
no revenue off of that property whatsoever, even
I
both the
know.
parks and so while, yeah, we're protecting wetlands and nobody did, or other habitat.
Right.
Nobody disagrees with that. We live in Geauga County, we're not living in Cleveland. And all of us, I moved here because of 5-acre minimums and because I like the rural atmosphere and all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. And I also hunt and I like to fish and I want to have a place to go hunt and fish, although nobody's allowed me on the property to hunt and fish. But with that said, still, the reality of that is, from a pure bookkeeping standpoint, is there's no revenue coming in from those. And so we all have to pick up the tab on the property taxes just for that. That's the reality. On top of that, the parks cost us a ton of money to manage and to maintain. We've got a full staff over there, we have park rangers and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation, okay? On top of that, we throw a conservation easement on top of property we own that we already protect, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, because we're protecting property that's already protected, and so and that costs us also. And so we gotta start looking at this at some point and start being reasonable about this.
Yeah.
And so that's.
In the case of a
my take.
conservation
So-
easement, the auditor will not reduce property taxes. If you put a conservation easement on your property, you're still gonna pay.
Correct, as long as
same
you still hold the property, but if
Right.
the conservation easement is transferred over to a park
the
district,
property itself.
or the state
Right.
of Ohio, the
Sure.
city of Akron or whatever, it's gone.
In the case of the park district, some of their land they bought they purchased parcels in the past that were in CAUV, they were farmed. The park is continuing to manage them in that way, and they're still paying taxes on it, even though it's park-owned property. But I'm sure that, I know that for a fact, they're still being paid property taxes on
There's
those.
no park property that I know of that's owned by the park that's.
If the
On
park owns it-
528, there's the Irwin Farm, that they are paying property taxes on it, and there's another park parcel in that area.
The 528 in what?
Just north of, it's in Parkland
Is
Township.
it that big field?
It's on the west side of the road.
Right, it's like a real beautiful field that goes up.
It's pretty, you'll see a sign
Yeah.
there that says Irwin Farm, and then there's I think it's either a Nature Conservancy or Western Reserve Land Conservancy
Okay,
signs.
so here's the situation, if he's got that in the, so in that situation there, and if you went on like the Geauga property search and look, there's probably an owner listed on that property. He put it into a conservation easement, but he never transferred it over to a park.
Oh, it is, the park does own the property, I know that for sure.
Well, I can tell you that if the park owns it, there's no tax on it.
On the,
I'll
is it on the?
You know, it'd be
we'll take a
something-
bet on
The
it.
what?
Check on it, you'll see, it really is. I've checked on it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, we can look it up if Skip looks it up real quick. I know where you're talking about, because I always look at turkeys in that field, so.
Wait,
That's-
there's turkeys in that field?
Yeah.
By the way,
protected
anybody
turkeys.
knows of a place to go turkey hunting or deer hunting, let me know.
But I'm with you 100%. I mean, you know, I think that my reason for wanting to be in Geauga County is because of the ruralness of it, and it's nice. And I think that we have a gem here that I know that, like, you know, that's one of the things that Skip gets real passionate about with NOACA, because we're basically trying to be, you know, choked to make decisions that we don't want to do. We're on your side, and the only thing that gets to be a struggle is like with this park district thing, is that it would be nice if we would be able to have the law read that there would be something that has to be carried onto the property for some form of revenues that would go to services, you know, that it doesn't become 100%, you know, tax-free. Because here's the thing, is the city of Akron is making money on that water. You know, they're making money on that water, and it's our resource that they're making money on, that they're not paying a dime for. They purchased the property, I imagine, years ago, but they're building, you know, I think, you know, Akron, Stowe, Hudson. I had a list actually, because I looked into this one time, you know, because what I wanted to do was this, when I actually started to look into this, you know, the commissioner's responsibilities, I wanted to try to approach that subject to say, listen, Akron, you're making X number of dollars on this water, why can't you give us a certain amount of that, you know, of that profit to be able to put towards the services and towards the county, because we you know, we're doing our part to have you here, and you know, and it was something that was, I contacted Columbus, I contacted some of the federal organizations that control all of that, and it was pretty much absolutely positively not, you're not gonna do anything to collect anything. The city of Akron can charge whatever they want for the water, and you don't get nothing. So, I mean, you and I think that, you know, you seem to be a sensible guy. You could probably see my point too, is it would be nice to be able to have, even if it was a penny a gallon that they're selling, to come back into this county for us to put towards our
Sure.
services.
Sure, I understand. But you know, you need to,
What was the name of the owners of that property?
it is Geauga Park, it's the Irwin Farm, those were the folks that sold the property to the Park District. But it is owned by the Park District. And they're continuing to keep it in the CAUV program and pay taxes on it. That was what I've been told. I was told that by the parks, by the Park District people. But you know,
Some of the easement property that the parks manages, they don't own.
It was either Keith McClintock or Tom Curtin. This was some time ago.
Years ago.
Well, that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed.
Did you get it in
Is
writing?
it listed?
No, this was just verbal
Any
conversation.
chance you can get us a parcel number?
I'll call
Pull up a map.
Parks, I'll get some
That's
information.
why I said, I wonder if it's on the map behind Dave's head, because the property is marked.
It's on 520, I don't see
Yeah.
a park. I see
Yeah.
some-
It's on the west side of the
So
520.
it could be there, but it's not, there's no margin.
Right, so what is the,
I mean, this is all, this all has to be a balance. I mean, because what'll happen is periodically people will come here and talk about, we don't have enough affordable housing in Geauga County.
Well, you can't-
why did-
sure,
did-
I know.
What caused that?
I know,
If
you
you keep
can't-
tying up property.
You know, you can't have everything, people talk about how they moved
Yeah.
to Geauga County because they like the rural atmosphere, but unless you take some active action, it's going to disappear.
Well, I mean, but it's
Housing-
gotta be a balance. If you go
Well-
too far one direction or the other, you cause a problem.
You know,
That's the key.
how, people buy parcels with the intent of subdividing them. They're going to get subdivided and our rural atmosphere will disappear. The areas you like to hunt and fish in are going to disappear.
Right.
It is going to happen. If it happens slowly, it's more insidious because you don't notice it so much. So unless some action is actually taken to protect these natural areas and farms, it won't, and farms continue, farmlands that have conservation easements on it continue to pay taxes. So if you're worried
Yeah, as
about
long
that.
as long as they're privately owned.
Yeah.
But and what has happened is that, and I believe that it was renewed at the beginning of, I believe in 15, they renewed the tax credit through the federal government for the ability of putting your
Right.
property into conservation easement. And so what has happened is, a lot of people have done that. They've put their property into a conservation easement, and what they do, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they basically take the value, they do a valuation of that property. And then the valuation, I believe it's over the course of 5 years that you can actually collect that on your income.
Yep.
To utilize that as to put it against your taxes for 5 years. And what has happened is that it's a decision that people have made have done to do that. I think that if the credit wasn't there for the tax break, I think that a lot of, I would probably say that 50% of that would probably not exist. The other 50% that truly believe in conservation and easements and everything else would still do that because they want to have their,
Right.
part of it. But and I think that, the reality is that, that's why you see a lot of the conservation companies, that probably lobbied heavy for Congress to vote on that again so that they would put that back into place so that they would be able to do that. But one of the things that there is too is there's a lot of strings attached to when you do that because they pretty much control that whole property,
Well, you've sold that. If you're a farmer, you're actually being paid for that loss of being able to subdivide it. And what they did, they allowed, that law change, that involved donation of conservation easements. They actually extended that over 15 or 16 years now. You can take whatever you donated and deduct that on your income tax.
For how long?
I believe it's 15 or 16 years.
Okay.
But if under the state program, under the Clean Ohio program, that farmer is actually paid for that easement, to promise to keep it, and it's put in his deed where that land has to be kept as farmland. So
But
he's
how did
being
he pay
paid.
for it?
I'm
He's
sorry?
being paid. He's not
Correct.
paying, right.
Correct, so he can't, there's nothing for him to deduct on his taxes because he's already being paid.
Right.
One of the problems is,
But that's where I think that's where we were kind of at the beginning, we were saying that, in that scenario, the situation is that it would be like me, you have your own home somewhere, you have your own home and property.
right,
Me coming to you and basically saying, hey, listen, I'm gonna give you $200,000 for your house, I mean, it's valued at that, but I don't want you to do anything else on your lot. Continue to, grow your tomato plants
Sure.
and stay there. And that's a great deal.
see
That's a
where-
great deal. The problem is
This is
that,
where you're gonna go right to
once
the-
again, we look back, is where did those dollars
See
come
North
from?
Street and
Those
Main
dollars
Street?
came from you and me.
And
And it's an individual that's
That's what we're
benefited.
gonna
Same
need
thing with
today.
that Coliker Fen.
I touch it.
You know, they received like $95,000
Yes, yes.
max value, I mean, big value on swampland, that if you were a private individual that was gonna buy that property, you would have never
So
bought
what is
it.
the property we're talking about?
Oh, excuse me. You know, I only know it by the sign on 528, so I really couldn't. If you look on the Park District map, you'll see it
Are
delineated.
you
It
showing
shows-
that it's owned by somebody? I know exactly which property he's talking about.
Here's the,
You guys,
where
I
it's
think
marked,
you
so I don't know which
hands
one it
down.
is.
Manage to get it? I can't.
He can't get the network, he was having trouble with the network too.
Yeah, the network wasn't working, I had to go on my own network.
I've
Yeah.
never been on the property, I only know it from the sign
He
by
might have
on
to
the
be in
road.
down, because where he's at is like, he's looking at the main part of, Parkman where we're gonna get.
This is 528 here.
Yeah.
So I think if you hit it and pull it
And
down.
then why don't you just put the color orthos in, he'll be able to, just to do it in color orthos, and it'll actually put down the true aerial, like this here. Go to the most recent right there. Okay, so now what it is, let me take a look at this real quick here. I'll tell you which one it is. Okay. Let me wait till that thing blows up and then I'll.
I can connect to the internet on the network, but I can't go to the county website.
Okay.
That's why I was saying, put it in like a park
It
district.
is,
And see if you can pull up
See,
their
yeah.
map of their
okay,
property,
this is Main Street here, and,
because it shows everything that they have as park and as other, like,
Right.
it's a breakdown, it shows you all of that on the map. That should all be included on that behind you.
Yeah, well, so I think it's, to what you're describing.
It's right on 528.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any name.
Right, because it's not in one of their active parks, it's
Right.
just
So this
property
is it
that
right
they
here.
own.
If you look at the Park District properties, showing where all the Park District property, that'll come in as green, and you'll be able to see it. I think you can probably,
Yeah, that's what we're looking
Is
at,
that
in the
right?
bottom
Okay.
corner
Okay.
of the map behind Dave is, it shows you property that's owned, but there's no name listed because
Right.
it's not an active park.
right.
Shows, park house, but there's no ledger there, so it is. But this is an active park, there's a name, that's got, these are parklands with no.
One of those was where the mast well was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not sure which one, I think this was one closer to Chicken.
Yeah. See, there's another one there.
Yeah.
Are we talking the Chickagami Park?
No,
In that area?
no, that's on 160.
No, that's an active park.
That's what's-
Notice if you look at this map, you'll see some green areas that have no name, and then you'll see green areas north of Chickagami.
But it's in the same neighborhood, right?
Yeah, just north of there, north of Chickagami.
Because I'm not seeing any other parks. They list Chickagami, so if it's an active park, it would be
It's
on the
not,
map.
it's not an active park, but it is owned by
But it's
Geauga.
owned by the property, so it's depicted as a color. So I'm saying is, the one in your office, because we had all of that done, we had those layers put on the map, we had hanging on the wall, and then be listed on there.
I'm sorry, this is it right here. I was looking at Main Market. When I turn this around, this is the parcel right here. This parcel right here. This one and this one. It's these parcels. If you can get what the, here, you wanna look at this, sir?
I believe they sold, the park sold the house when they
So as you're
purchased
coming
it.
down, coming down Madison Road,
Uh-huh.
here's 422, it's right here, it's these fields.
Why no?
Um,
Just north of Parkman, as you start to go out, it's this big field right here. That street is called Hosmer Road,
Okay.
and it's right here.
Um, Well, it would be on the west side of the road though.
Oh, the west side of the road?
Yeah, but.
Because the sign is over here.
Yeah, I can't recall a sign there, but I know there's a sign on the right side that says urban farm, and then I think it's a Western Reserve Land Conservancy sign there also, and they're both on the west side of the road.
West side.
That's all I can, like I say, I haven't been on the property, I don't know.
Yeah, because if you would,
I'll check with the parks and I'll give you a call, I'll let you know.
yeah, if you could call me on that, because I'd like
Okay.
to look at that.
But I've been told that at least they have at least a couple of parcels that they bought that they are continuing to keep them as farmland, and pay property tax on them at the CAUV rate, which is the same rate they were paying before. That's what I was told by them.
Well, they have the Whedon parcel out there, which has got a Western Reserve Land Conservancy.
But that's still private,
an
that's
act-
still owned
that's
by
an active
Mrs.
farm.
Whedon, yeah.
That's right, it's an active farm. That's the green area.
That's the one,
That's the
okay.
Whedon farm.
Okay, so that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, that's beautiful property there. Yeah.
Which will never really get to be farmed.
It's had the conservation, again, she benefited that, she was paid for that conservation easement, so she can't take a tax deduction. You know what I mean?
But anybody, I've got a copy of the contract on that property. Anybody that buys that property going forward will not be able to farm. And I say that because the constraints inside of that contract say that in order for you to farm that property, you have to farm according to a farm plan that's presented to the Western Reserve Land Conservancy and the Department of Agriculture. Once you can't make any changes to your farming plan unless you get approval and permission from the Western Reserve Land Conservancy. You got a unnamed third party. The Western Reserve Land Conservancy can sell off that easement at any point in the time they choose to any other conservancy. And so the rules can change, and so I would contend to you that any farmer that really wants to farm that property is gonna have challenges, because their hands are gonna be tied. They have to respond to market forces when they're trying to farm a piece of property.
Sure.
And today, if I'm farming soybeans, and tomorrow the market for corn is hot, I wanna go to corn, I don't wanna have to go back to the Western Reserve Land Conservancy to ask for permission to farm corn instead of beans.
Well, they will like the
So-
parcel, if there are that many constraints on it, when it is sold, it will likely be sold at a very reasonable price, and thus the farmer who buys it will, he'll say to himself, boy, I'm getting it at such a good price, I'll go ahead and abide by those constraints, you know what I mean?
Well,
It's a
they won't be
market,
able to
market
farm it. So,
forces.
well, ultimately, what will happen, this is what I predict happens with those kinds of properties. They have lost value. First of all, the county auditor, you made a comment that the county auditor doesn't reduce, that he does reduce the value based on easements, because the value of the property becomes less valuable. That comes from Western Reserve Land Conservancy, by the way. If you read their selling documents, they say that the value of the property will be reduced because they've sold off a bundle of the rights associated with that property.
You know-
Look at property, there's a bundle of rights associated with that property.
I know.
When you sell off a part of those bundle of rights on a piece of property, it now reduces its value. And so that does reduce the taxes to the county.
I agree with you that
And
it
so-
reduces the value. I've considered donating a conservation easement on my property. I've gone through 2 auditors who've refused. I haven't gone ahead with it, and the main reason is because both of the county auditors, Tracy Jemison and our present auditor, has said they will not lower the property valuation on my property, even though by giving away a conservation easement, I've given away a lot of value.
It does impact the property value over time. I mean, I sat on the board of revision and reviewed people who were making conservation easement donations and so
Yeah.
forth. And so it's true, it's not an immediate reaction, because some of the values of property over time change. They don't change for the person who happens to live there. But the challenge with property with easements on them is over time, there's so many controls associated with those properties that we lose those as farmland. They now will become parks because there's so many controls on them, you can't effectively farm that property any longer. And if you doubt that, I'm gonna encourage you to go to the county recorder, pull some contracts, and look at the constraints inside of the contracts. We own 2 pieces of property, the county. This has happened a long time before Ralph and I got here. And we have 2 pieces of property. You can't spit on that property. You can do nothing with that property. We can't put in a trail, we can't cut a tree, we can't do anything on that property. Now, it's great that it's sitting there fallow and for some future purpose, but we have purchased a piece of property that we now as a county are constrained in what we do with it. How can we ever sell that property? We can't sell the property for any value. We can't, if 50 years from today and Geauga County changes and the people in the county, their values change and they'd like to be able to do something with the property, they can't.
Well, why did
because
you
now
buy
it's
it?
being
Why was it
constrained.
purchased? Why was it purchased?
That was before my time, so I
It
had
was,
no, I
it
had
was
no idea why they
it was a
purchased it, so.
federal grant, I believe it was $750,000, so the county didn't pay out of our local funds.
Right,
We
right.
received the money, bought the land, and now it just has to sit there.
But you don't
Nothing
recall
under-
the reason for them purchasing it?
Well, just to conserve the land. This was in Chester Township, so I said, we wanna.
Because if there were so many constraints on it, then they should have been able to buy it at a cheaper, then it was over assessed.
Well, I think
You know.
for where it was, that $750,000 was a
Right.
bargain price.
Oh, is that
That's
right?
there. If that was developable land, it would've went for a lot more.
But if there were the constraints on it, it wasn't developable land, you know what I mean? Then they paid too much. The auditor made a mistake, or somebody goofed up there.
And to your,
So-
to your comment, I mean, about the auditors not reducing value, what happens over time is people come to the board of revision, they come to the board of revision, they've got, if they bring a professional appraisal, or professionals looked at it and said, based on all the facts, we think it's only worth this, the auditors will generally look favorable upon that.
You know what they've been doing, though? If you look at large parcels of land in the southeast part of the county, they've been seriously undervaluing large parcels. Now, I can give you an example on my place. I have a parcel, the land valuation, the county values it at $2,000 an acre. How quickly would you, if I offered that to you at $2,000, I'll bet it would take you no more than 2 or 3 seconds to say, I'll take it. I'll pay you the $2,000.
Well, the county does a tax evaluation, it's not, that's not a market evaluation. They're not valuing it to sell it, they're valuing it in your favor, by the way.
But it should be
from a
at
tax
fair market
standpoint.
value. According to law, valuation should be at fair market value, but it's assessed, the amount that you pay taxes on is less than fair market value. But I'm talking about the fair market value on my property is listed as about $2,000 an acre. 20 years ago, I can show you parcels that sold for more than that. There have been several parcels in the last 10 years that sold for $3,000 or $4,000. I'm not talking about little lots. So what happens is, if I were to go to the Board of Revision, they would say, go get I would have to justify reductions based on what other parcels are being evaluated at, and they're all, if you look at the valuations on the property, they're all lower, in my view, lower than they should be for what they would actually sell for.
So do you think that we should appraise them higher?
They should have been, what ends up happening, by praising them lower, it doesn't mean we pay less taxes. That means the governmental entities put more taxes on the ballot. So we end up paying more. We end up paying just as much in the end anyway, because of the government entities being banging away at us, putting new taxes on the ballot.
I'm not following your logic. First of all, I sat on the Board of Revision, and we've viewed
Right.
a lot of properties.
Yeah,
And I can't remember the last piece of property, and how many acres do you have?
about 80.
Yeah, especially large acreage, like I don't remember one coming through that low. But ultimately, the county auditor does not determine market value. The market determines market value.
Well, they
And
do
so-
evaluations, though. They do
evaluations
assessments,
for
yeah.
tax purposes.
Right.
Okay?
But they're
And
to
so-
be based on fair market value, supposedly.
You're missing my point.
No.
My point is, they
Yeah.
determine values purely for taxing purposes. They're not telling you what you can sell your property for. If you wanted to go sell your property,
Yeah.
I'll buy it from you for $2,000 an acre. because-
I know you. I know you.
I'll tell you,
So
I
if you're
think-
willing to do that today, come on up and.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think he's got a valid point. I really think we need to talk to the auditor's office. You know, I do. I think I agree with you. I think that we need to talk to the auditor's office. Let's see if we can, I mean, if you'd like to, I'll
So we
call
can increase the
them.
value of his property, is what you're saying?
Right, I mean, I'll call them if you'd like me to. I can try to do that. Because I agree with you. I mean, here's the thing is if they're saying it's 2,000, you're gonna have a hard time showing, value if down the road you wanted to sell it. So, maybe they undervalued or made a mistake. I mean, if
Well,
you
it's not a
want to,
mistake,
if
it's
you
a-
can
it's
give
a
me the
plan.
information and I can talk to them. I mean, I'll do that for you, for real.
And at the same time, have them reduce the action, take away some of these taxes that they put on the ballot, you know what I mean?
People
It
vote
should
for
be a
those
two-way
taxes.
street.
That's the problem. People vote
But I
for
mean,
all
here's
those
the,
taxes.
here's the situation with the
Yeah.
ballots. I mean,
Right.
we can't, you understand as commissioners, we can't control that. The ballots that you have is this, you know, developmental disabilities, Department on Aging,
Mental health.
Jobs and Family Services,
Mental health.
mental health,
I know.
The
the library, school board, and we don't control those, that goes to a vote.
I know.
And, but I can tell you this, is if you go and look at where your money is, like, there's on there, you could see what percentage of your taxes is going where. The schools is probably the largest one, could
Well,
be,
in
I
this
think it's
example,
over
It
55%.
was 63% in this example
63.
I came up with.
And so I'll, if you want to give me the information, I agree with you. I mean, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, you know. I've got a piece of property myself in Middlefield that was appraised higher than what I thought it should have been. And I'm being assessed taxes on that. But I also understand is that down the road, if I want somebody to come up to me tomorrow and say, I want to buy this, well, I've got at least a point of start to say, here's where I'm at with the county, and that's probably less, I know it's less than what I should be getting. So what I'll do is if you want to give me your information of where your parcel's at, I'll call them and I'll talk to them for you, and I'll ask them to see if they could possibly reassess it for you, because I think that you don't want to,
You know, I'm not interested in being singled out. What I'm saying is the whole system's wrong.
No, but I'm trying to say I can help
what I
you
mean?
if you want me to
Well,
try
that
to.
wouldn't be, if you're gonna just complain about my property and saying it should be higher, what should be is, all of the large properties should be evaluated in a better way, in a fairer way, and I don't think they're doing it. Because if you look
Okay.
at all the property in southeast Parkman Township, you'll find, there was a 10-acre parcel just sold not too long ago for $10,000 an acre. I can recall 6 or 7 years ago, a 30-acre parcel being sold for $4,000 or $5,000.
I mean, you've got to look into this maybe then and see. I think you might have some valid points.
Well, what I'm saying is basically, my point is if you donate a conservation easement that you're giving away half the value of your property, you should be paying half the taxes on that. Because you're giving away half, and the auditors refuse to do that. Both, because I've approached them about it. I've approached Tracy Jemison about it, and our present auditor, and they've refused to do it. Now, so where do I go from there? Do I get an appraisal on my property, and the appraisal might say it's worth $4,000 an acre? So they say, well, your appraisal, we're taxing you actually less than your appraisal,
Well, I think what they're
even
gonna
though you've
say
given
is-
away half of its value.
Right,
You know what
and
I mean? I would get nowhere.
And that's the hard part about it too, because what happens is that if you did that, and that's why I think we're all in agreement here. I mean, we're all on, I think we're all on the same page, because we understand where you're coming from, and I think that you understand where we're coming from, because here's the situation is,
Yeah,
let's say you put your 80 acres into a conservation easement,
right.
and the auditor were to reduce it, because now, as soon as you put in a conservation easement, the value of that property was cut down, I would say probably less than half, because somebody's gonna buy that, they're buying something that they're basically completely controlled.
They have to abide by it. Sure.
So at the end of the day, you have a reduced property, but the situation is that for the county, just imagine if everybody did that, we would cut our taxes in half. We would cut our revenues in half. If they just reduced it by 50%, we would go bankrupt.
Like I say, you have the right to, you have, Geauga County does not have an income tax. There are other ways you could tax.
You can't,
You
we can't.
You have no authority for that, is that right?
Sales
Okay.
tax.
And,
Sales tax.
and the biggest thing is that, ultimately, I think that it comes down to is this personal decision. If you have the freedom to put your property into a conservation easement, but part of that decision also understands that you're going to have to maintain taxes for that, unless a park takes it, then there's no taxes. And then you don't have your property, you know? And I know that the park has done deals. There was one that actually was not too far away from my house where somebody was able to live on that. They gave them basically like a life lease or something.
Life estate, sure.
Life estate.
Sure.
That they were able, that property was given to the park, and they were able to live there till their death, and once they died, that's it, then park takes it over.
I think they still have to pay some tax, that individual still has to pay some tax.
I think what they
you
do
know.
is they pay a certain amount to the park district for the cost of the, some kind of a deal, and I think that could be structured in the
Right.
deal.
What we need, though, you know, this gets back to our tax structure. The state needs to give authorities like you more ways of funding things other than resorting to property or sales tax. Like, for example, instead of cutting the income tax should be raised, and you should get a bigger percentage of that. Some of that should go back to you folks.
But we don't really get income tax here because the
Well-
only ones that get the income tax are the cities and villages.
I think what you're saying is if the state maintained its income tax and gave more, the problem with that is,
Yeah.
if the state income tax rate is too high, people move to other states where there's no income tax, and now you have nothing.
But that hasn't proven, you know, with we've had a series of tax reductions at the state level, of income tax reductions. Have people poured into Ohio to take advantage of it? That hasn't happened. Populations
No, because
continue
the
to
other
go
states
down.
have no income tax at all.
Well,
But I do think that there are some businesses that have come into Ohio because of the tax. We had one here in Geauga County over in Middlefield that actually transferred their plant from Canada to come into to Ohio to do their business because of a lot of the advantages that there were. Now, what did that do? It created jobs here in our county, you know, luckily, but it also created dollars for the village of Middlefield because now they're able to have a little bit of a better base because of the jobs they created.
well, I'm certainly not an expert on why companies move, but there are a lot of reasons for it. One reason why a company might move into an area is because it has a lot of beautiful natural areas where there's a lot of hunting and fishing, and their employees think, boy, that would be a great area for us to live in. Let's move our facility there. I've heard taxes is not high on the list. Now, whether that's a fact or not, this is just what I've heard.
Well,
Taxes.
that's untrue because
Yeah.
like you look at how many companies have been leaving California.
Right.
I mean,
And New York.
and New York also, because of the taxes. So I mean, that's not true. The taxes are
I
a
know.
huge deal because
Taxes are
that goes right to the bottom line.
If my company was in Los Angeles and my employees had to drive 3 hours to get to work, I might think about moving. That's an example
Sure,
of where
yeah.
taxes may not be a big reason. So,
But I mean, the taxes are outrageous and their
I know.
companies are moving.
I know they are high.
You know, tremendously. I mean,
Let me ask you another question, I'm kinda curious. You own the 80 acres, do you farm it?
You know, I to some extent, you know,
Why did you
I've
buy-
rented.
Why did you buy 80 acres?
You know, at the time I had a beekeeping business, and I was operating at a, you know, I was using the parcel for that operation.
You still do that? Because I need some advice on bees.
Oh, I'll be glad to, but I've been out of it for I got out of it because of do you have bees on beekeeping?
My bee hive died last year, so I'm gonna pick me up a
Oh.
nuke here this spring.
Well, one of the problems is there are mites. They've been causing, unless you treat for mites, you're gonna have problems. But I have rented out fields from time to time to farmers for various purposes. A lot of it I manage just for wildlife because I think that's important.
So you thought, you valued the 80 acres and you wanted to own it because you wanted to manage it, to protect it, to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, that's part of it,
In
sure.
the Constitution in the state of Ohio, I don't know whether you know this or not, 1.06 in our Constitution says that in Ohio, it's an important constitutional right that we have to acquire and enjoy and protect property. And all of us, I think, in this room would agree that that's an important So the question I have for you is,
Mhm.
if you constrain the future kids, because you and I aren't gonna be around forever.
Right,
In 20,
right.
30 years from today,
Mhm.
if we put a conservation easement on a property, we are now telling the future kids, you don't have a right to enjoy the property the way that we did. We
Right,
purchased
right.
it because, so we're gonna constrain you out of the grave. We're
Mhm.
gonna constrain you, and you can only enjoy it in this way, because we determined that it wasn't, that we didn't like
Sure.
your future
Okay.
to be controlled. So how do you feel about
Let
it
me-
morally, just
My
morally?
response to that is, if a developer goes in, drains wetland, puts a housing development into where land was farmland, he's constrained future generation for any value, any value that land may have had for other purposes.
That
No
we
longer-
agree
no longer
that, we agree
could-
that the farmland
Okay.
is a good thing. We
Yeah.
agree that we would like to have large tracts of land, because it's an important thing, so we can hunt, fish, enjoy it, farming and all that kind of stuff. We agree on that. So I'll stipulate that with you.
Well,
But
he's-
if you constrain the future generations from being able to use and enjoy that property freely, because you're now tying their hands, and in fact, some of the conservation easements that I've looked at, we've tied the hands of anybody that wants to farm that property. They can't farm it the way they would, be free to farm the property. And so I look at that and I question this. It's a real dilemma for me. Do we have the moral right to be able to tell the future generations, you're too stupid, so we're gonna put constraints on it because we don't trust you to handle this property right?
Well-
Or should we let trust to them and let them make the decisions that are right for their time?
If that trust inevitably, it ends up being natural areas being disappeared, and like I say, but by that developer coming in and changing that land, you've constrained future generations forever having the value of that wetlands. They have value as
I
protecting
don't think you're
groundwater.
getting any disagreement from any of us on
Yeah.
that. We agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I think the point that he's trying to make, and I mean, and this is my point also, let's say, for example, that people put conservation easements on their property.
Mhm.
Those are tax dollars, whether you want to believe it or not, they are. And that's all of our money in that goes to do that. But like what you're saying is you would have to be able to enjoy the hunting, the fishing, and et cetera, et cetera. I can tell you this, you look at all the properties that were purchased on conservation or out of say, the WRSP funds, Clean Ohio Act, all of those funds. I can't go and hunt on those properties. I can't just pull up and there's a sign that says public hunting to be able to still enjoy that. I can't go out there and just go on that property to take my daughter to go and watch butterflies. I can't go on that property to just go for a walk in the woods because I'd be trespassing and I could be charged with that. So at the end of the day, there's restrictions. I get what you're saying, but it's not. And I think that you got to really think about what you're saying in this, because you have more of us agreeing with you than disagreeing with you. But I think where the part is that we're all in agreement of the conservation part, but I think that there's a wall that's there of actually having the ability to utilize those resources that in reality doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, and I would challenge you to go and try to go and hunt one of those properties. There's a property that was purchased with dollars that's a very large tract of property that has probably some of the nicest hunting for deer in the state. And I can tell you that it's probably a select group that is able to do that, that if I went on that property to hunt it, though I paid for it with my tax dollars, I would be told to get off. If not, the sheriff would probably come and arrest me for trespassing.
Well,
So is that right?
Well,
Let me
that
ask you just that question. Is that right?
That would apply whether that property.
But answer my question. Is that right?
Is that right? What? Would you repeat?
Is that right? That our tax dollars are paying for these properties, but we don't have access to those properties.
Well,
We don't.
I don't have access to this building over next door here, and my tax dollars pay for it.
You do have access.
You have access to every building?
You have
in this
access
county?
to it right now.
Can I look through your file cabinets?
You can come to my office
You
right now.
absolutely can. The
How
Ohio.
about personnel records? Can I look?
Well, not a CASA, because that's personal. But you can come into my office, you're free.
I
And
mean-
by the way, if you'd help me to organize them, I'd appreciate that, because I'm not real good at the organizing part.
I mean, that's why I tore out my reserved parking spot here, because this isn't mine. I tore out my sign because of the fact that it's your parking lot. You paid for it.
Right.
I come in here and park in a space that I find. That's just the way it is, because it's not mine.
You know, I think it's approached more than anything else. Let me present this to you.
Sure.
What is the best way to protect farmland? Is it to give a third-party, unknown agency that is not transparent and it's not accountable to anybody, the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, or to sell it to a farmer? I can tell you, as a farmer, I am going to be vehemently protecting that property.
The problem is,
So-
though, when if you sell it to a farmer, what inevitably happens is that farmer gets old, his kids see dollar signs, and it ends up getting sold to a developer. You can see that time and time again. Unless there's something in the deed that prevents that, and that farmer is getting paid for that. He's getting paid for selling the
He's dead and
development.
gone. 50 years from today, that
I'll tell you what
He's still
happens,
locked
though.
up and-
All it takes is a judge can turn, if you think conservation easements are forever, that is just not the case.
It
I
is
can tell,
the
I
case.
can show you a case out west. It was either Colorado or Wyoming, where what happened, an individual sold an easement on his property, a conservation easement. It was supposed to be kept in farming forever and ever. That individual sold that parcel to someone else. That individual said, farming is no longer viable on this property. The county, the local entity held that easement. He went to the county and asked him to rescind the easement because farming is no longer profitable in it. I'd like that to be rescinded. The county said, sure, we'll rescind we'll give you that easement back. And that was it.
So you're putting the fate of that, a couple things on that. You're putting the fate of that into the hands of one judge. You're putting that also into the faith that there's going to be, how many dollars is it going to take you to get it to that level to be able to do that? And there's no guarantees.
Well, there's no guarantees in life, so.
No,
But what I'm saying is, that's an example of a conservation
But what
easement that was
happens
changed.
in Skip's situation where all of a sudden the farming is controlled, and you know, it's like anything else. I mean, you put something into the wrong hands and it could really spoil the soup real bad.
But the individual agreed to that when they signed that conservation.
When
You
they
know,
did.
One of the things about conservation easements, they're very flexible as to how they're written. I could have a conservation easement on my property that might say, the only restriction is that no pesticides be used in the future. And the property could be subdivided, the forest could be cut down, anything else could be doing, but so it's depending on how the easement is actually written and
It's not likely Western Reserve Land Conservancy would be involved with that, because they have a standard that they use to say these are the constraints in that contract. And so this has been a valuable conversation. We need to probably end the session.
I know.
You're
No.
welcome to stay. I mean, we can have a conversation. We probably had to adjourn.
I
and
know.
We can continue this after session.
But they'll write that they're very Western Reserve will write it any way you want.
No, I'm going to disagree with you on that. So,
Okay.
but we're free to have it's been very enjoyable. I really appreciate you coming. You're welcome back anytime, and we can.
You've tired me out.
But we've got staff that have other things to do, so I'll stay and talk with you all day long. But we probably had to adjourn the session.
You need to recess.
Oh, we need to recess because we're going to be meeting back at 1:30 over on. Meet us over in Parkman.
Yeah.
Continue so you can buy us some coffee. We'll buy you coffee. So.
It's a nice day.
It is a nice day.
It is a nice day. We're going to go over and enjoy walking on some property over there. So let me know where your farm is so that we can talk to
Raise
you
my
about it.
taxes.
Motion to recess.
Motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a good conversation.
And I'll just jump right into the engineer's report. As per ORC 555-53045. And I can hand a copy out to anybody who would like one. There's a map at the back. February 23rd, 2016, an unnamed, non-numbered township road was established 12 feet in width from the easterly right-of-way of Norton Street, Township Road number 476, to the westerly right-of-way of State Road 528 in the year 1950. This unnamed, non-numbered township road is first referred to as the alley, shown on plat created by F.R. Zethmeyer in 1950. This alley is also referenced in volume 41, page 98 and 99 of Geauga County Records of Plats. On January 19, 2016, the Township Board of Trustees passed resolution number 16-42, requesting the Board of County Commissioners begin vacation proceedings for the unnamed, non-numbered road known as the alley. On January 29, 2016, the Engineer's Office received an email from Mark Dolezal, Treasurer of the Western Phoenix Masonic Lodge number 42, located at 16196 Main Market Road, current parcel number 25-050400, occupying Phase 4. Mr. Dolezal expressed the largest concern with being negatively impacted by the vacation of the unnamed alley. On February 1st, 2016, the received an email from Mark Dolezal, Treasurer of the Western Phoenix Masonic Lodge, number 42, located at 16196 Main Market Road, current parcel number 25-050400, occupying the third floor. Mr. Dolezal expressed the largest concern with the issue of ingress and egress from the property to Norton Street after vacating the alley. On February 3rd, 2016, a telephone conference call took place with Township Trustee Jonathan Ferguson, Trustee Parkwood Township, David Laird, County Administrator, Geauga County Board of Commissioners, Christine Blair, Clerk, Geauga County Board of Commissioners, Andrew Hopp, Deputy Senior Staff, Geauga County Engineers Office. Topics of the discussion were as follows. The Board of Commissioners advised the Township that vacation proceedings will move forward unless the Township rescinded its resolution in the case that the private property owners could not come to terms over ingress and egress. The Engineer's Office advised the Township that an easement for use as a turnaround at the end of Norton Street should be considered and gained while negotiating with the property owners. The Office of the Geauga County Engineer has reviewed the situation and performed a field review and some survey work for the proposed vacation. The unnamed, non-numbered road known as the alley, proposed to be vacated, is not used to calculate distributions of auto registration funds by the state of Ohio. No parcels will be landlocked if the road is vacated. All public utilities retain easement rights within the right-of-way limits resulting for a road vacation or state law. Based on the above facts, the Office of the Geauga County Engineer believes the requested vacation would be for the public convenience and necessity. The Geauga County Engineer's Office recommends that the Geauga County Board of Commissioners proceed with the vacation of the unnamed, non-numbered road known as the alley from the easterly right-of-way of Norton Street, Township Road number 476, to the westerly right-of-way of State Route 528 for a distance of approximately 219.12 feet. Any land held in fee by the county and no longer needed for highway purposes should be disposed of in accordance with Ohio law. Prepared by Andrew W. Howe, BPS, Deputy County Engineer.
So in layman's terms, we're gonna go from basically
The right-of-way of 528.
right-of-way of 528.
That's why this sketch comes in kind of handy.
Okay.
Right-of-way of 528, and there's a jog in the actual deeds
Okay.
up to the existing right-of-way of Norton Street, which is just by those posts that were driven. That's been vacant. That, from the post south to 422 Heston, 2013. And across the hatching that's shown on these three different parcels in question. The existing right-of-way, which is owned in fee by commissioners, then revert back to the property owners on each side.
Okay.
Mr. Christoph would gain half, the entire northerly half of the right-of-way, which is 0.024 acres. And then for the parcel to the north of the right-of-way, the parcel that Mr. Christoph owns south of the right-of-way, which is basically this structure here. So 0.01 acre. Parcel of the right-of-way. And Marcus LLC That's the distribution of the road.
So we're gonna split this area right down the middle. One side goes to this building, one side goes to this building.
It's the most equitable distribution we can come up with.
Anybody disagreeing with that?
And
Not-
and
not
far,
gonna work.
as far as the organization that's here, they work out the details. I mean, that's not gonna be a problem.
Gary?
No,
Mr. Kristoff.
we've worked it out.
Okay.
We're gonna, once it's done, we'll be able to get an easement
Okay.
from Mr. Kristoff, and we'll be covered for
Okay.
future generations.
And it'll be a recorded easement then too? Okay.
And the easement will be this road basically, or no? What's the easement gonna be?
It's mostly just to be able to get equipment and stuff back here, because we maintain the roof and everything. Sometimes we have to bring cranes in here and just filling up our fuel tanks and stuff, just maintenance stuff more than anything else.
So lodge is on the third floor?
Yes, we own the third floor.
Okay.
Now, who owns this property when that was vacated? Do you own that property?
We own the third floor, Mr. Kristoff owns the other.
It's an unusual
Oh, I see. So the building is actually co-owned.
Yes.
And so who owns that alleyway there?
It splits, when they vacated it, it split down the middle
So,
also.
right, this half is part of it.
So the only way to get access to the back of this building is
No.
Right through here.
oh, you go down north. So you don't need to do it this way. You can do it.
Just this part right here is basically what we're doing.
And that's pretty much what they agreed to. They're gonna,
The issue is now, obviously, with Mr. Kristoff, because we've been very, have a great working relationship, is for future generations and stuff, that we want to get this done, so.
If everybody's in agreement, then I have no problem.
and I don't, the only question I have that is stated here is if the township did approach for possible turnaround easement for road purposes in the future. I didn't know if that was discussed.
No,
It was suggested,
no.
not absolutely necessary, but it just.
When we push it right down there, just back out.
Okay. So you wanna move?
Second.
All right.
And then they've got